Doc here with Last Best Tool in the last best place, Montana. It's a balmy 50.9 degrees according to this Klein meter here, and that means it's a nice warm day, so time to work on the old truck. What I'm doing now is installing this fluid reservoir. This thing, basically the motor broke and the seal leaked and it kept draining out, so I pulled the thing out, and now what I'm going to do is solder this thing back in. I'm going to try to solder it back in. If not, I've got a couple of backup plans, but I also wanted to test this guy out and see. Let me turn on the light here, if that might help. In fact, the light I'm using is this Milwaukee. It's like a little flashlight. Whoops, I'm going to short out my battery if I'm not careful. Anyway, it's a rechargeable. Absolutely love this thing. It's got 3 different settings. When I turn it on, it gives me a battery life indicator, and then when it goes on, it has a memory. I've got kind of a low flood. This is a spot here, and then a high flood. And I'm going to use the high flood, and it's got a very strong magnet, so it just sticks quite easily to you know, any part of the car here. And the head swivels, so I can aim it. So what I'm doing is just sticking it right up onto the hood and aiming it down into my workspace, which is the battery here. Anyway, I'm going to give this guy a shot out here in the colder weather. If not, I've got some crimps that I'll use, and then either way I'm going to try to remember to heat shrink some covers over it, since it is an an outdoor circuit here. So, and I'm just hanging that thing conveniently on its rafter hook, right on the hood lockdown hook. Anyway, so here's the old connection, and this part here, this is actually supposed to be a release. It should just pop free. It's kind of hard to see, but it's frozen, and when I tried to get it off, I cracked the plastic, so I just cut this, and turns out when I started thinking about cutting it, I ended up realizing just exactly what other people had already done when they I had this reservoir replaced years ago. That's what they ended up doing. So I wanted to strip these out and prepare them to go back on. And so I was going to use these Klein strippers here, and these sometimes can be really handy, because if you have to wedge down behind something and you can't jerk on it like a, say like a regular pair of strippers like this, where you have to, you know, physically pull both sides. What I ended up doing here is seeing if I could just get it going on this this work area to test it out. Drop it in here, and you know what? This wire might be too small. It's just not grabbing. Could be a function of a lot of things, but I'm guessing this goes to 16. I might need a smaller wire cutter there. Let's try this one. This goes all the way out to 20, I believe, so I'll try maybe an 18 and see. Yeah, that worked out pretty well. Take off just a hair more. Good. Now this one has part of the old solder left on it, and I'd kind of like to preserve that. So sometimes in these cases what I'll do is grab a very small pair of pliers and maybe a knife, and I play with tools, obviously. This is one of Leatherman's, this is called the Free T2. It's one of their kind of new combination tools. It has a knife, and then if you can actually get these other things out, it's got kind of this all small screwdriver here, small slotted. It's got a Phillips screwdriver here with a can opener, and then it's got a larger slotted screwdriver, and I'm not sure what all else that is. But anyway, that's all this entire Leatherman thing is, in kind of a blocky form factor. But what I'd like to do is see if I can get this thing going by just scraping some off. I have to be careful I don't set stuff in the wrong place on the battery. And now I've got enough of it off, I can work with it. And then this is the other side, where these wires are kind of wrapped in. I'm going to basically smash them down a little bit, get rid of some of that texture. See if I can squish these. I sure do love these Talon grips. The Talon grip is actually their Snap-On's, I guess they're kind of cross hatching on the blade, not necessarily the blade form shape, but it came out, it seems, with the new little kind of wider modified needle nose. And anyway, these are definitely worth having, and they're kind of expensive, but you spend so much time with them that, per dollars per hour, totally worth it. So the next thing I need to do, I'm going to start warming up my Milwaukee soldering iron here, battery powered one, and I keep a bolt cover, get them at the hardware store on a lot of things, and that just stays on really snug. So highly recommend that, because this thing's pretty sharp. But just don't put it on when it's hot. I'm going to turn it on. It's firing up there. Green is blinking. I'll set it over here safely and get my solder ready. And in this case, I'm going to use a smaller soldering, by the way, safety first, because you only got one pair of eyes. And uh-oh, I'm already noticing my wonderful Milwaukee is complaining about the battery, so I'm going to throw a 6 amp hour on there. I'm going to use a smaller solder. You can see the size difference here, but this is actually hopefully going to melt out here in the cold. And this is I can smell the old solder from the first time I used it. This is a thing that I built in order to hold wire. So now I have to decide what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to try it with the soldering. If I get the soldering to work, I want to throw on these some probably this guy here, some of the, I'm going to cut this, some of the shrink tubing to put onto the, oh, is this too small? It should fit on there. Trying to wedge it on. Might be doing the newbie mistake, getting a too small a piece there, so I'm going to go up one size, hold that one so I know. So I'll go to this guy here, drop that one back in, cut it with my knife. I just want to use this knife, see how it works. Drop this on, and if it doesn't fit, I'm going to cut it again. But I'd like it to fit on, so I'm going to take this part back a little bit, give myself a little bit more working space, so that'll work well. Good. So there are my pieces. Now I'm going to match up the wires, and I'm going to use this clamp here. I can adjust these. They're just, I'll show you, I did a video, I haven't released it yet, but on how I kind of arrived at this crazy design. But I'm going to hold that there. I'm going to try not to electrocute myself. So there's that one, and now I'll put this guy in here, line them up. Try not to melt this this particular reservoir. It's not staying very well, so I might have to hook it again with another piece, but let's try this. So once I've got these things kind of lined up and stuck together, give it a little bit more room there. Maybe I'll turn it sideways. Better view for you. Try that. Flip that one around. Maybe I'll go from the top. There we go. So, line those two up to hold them. Maybe I can get a little twist in. I want some really strong clamps. That's what I need here. So there's that. Alright, let's try this thing. I'm going to get my solder ready. Get this thing heated up. And see if this thing works. I want to heat up the workpiece, not the solder. It might take a while. I might test it. There. See if it even melts. Ah, that's melting. It's okay to get a little solder on it. So I'll just hold it there. I want the capillary action to draw the solder into the wires. That's pretty good. I can barely see it actually. Come on. Come on, Milwaukee. Maybe there's a reason not everyone's jumping on the battery-powered soldering iron bandwagon. Yeah, come on. Looks like it should be working. Didn't use any flux or anything. There should be some inside this. Pretty lousy job. There we go. Is it staying good? It's holding together. Pretty sloppy job. I also have a torch. That was my backup, but I didn't think I was going to want to run the torch very close to the plastic. I'll have a whole nother project. And that is pretty sad. I'm going to add a little strength, I think. Still blinking away. So it's been on low battery for quite a while. And I don't even know if it's melting it anymore. There we go. Don't do it like this. That is not very strong. In fact, I melted it apart. I'm going to abandon this thing at the moment. So now when you shut it off, this red light here stays on for quite a while, telling you it's hot. I'm going to set it down and away from me. And go to plan B, which is crimping. So I've got a few different ones here. Let's see. And I'll go ahead and take off this thing that sort of works. Now, because of the crimp, these are actually heat shrink crimps. I got some specifically for this, so I'm going to pull off these heat shrink pieces. Yeah, you know what, I'm going to leave them on just in case I want them on for something. Like, nah, take them off. And I'm going to use these heat shrink crimps. One's too small. Let me see if that might snip that. These are those Klein nippers that I like, so I'm going to pop that off. Hope that didn't go into somewhere vital in the engine. Inside these, I don't know if you can see in there very well, but there's actually a little stop. So you want to slide it into the tube, get it inside the metal there, and it'll go about halfway. There's a little indicator. I'm going to put that on the downside. And now on the pliers, there's two marks. One is for non-insulated and one is for insulated. And so I'm going to use this kind of oval shaped part here to crimp this. Line it up on its side of the metal. Smash it down tight. That's why I like the longer handles. There's one. And then I'm going to need a little bit more working room on this guy. This side here. And now, this is this wire here. Maybe I'll trim it just a touch. That's why I like these little trimming tips. Put this guy on right in there. Line up the marker down and crimp. And I like the crimps on the outside of the pliers, so I don't have to try and hook a handle underneath. Other ones, if I've got a set out here, I don't see them, that have the crimping down here, can be a little tougher to work with in confined spaces. So, crimp number 2. Good. Nice clean crimp. A little off on my angle, so that's a good one. And I'm going to heat shrink these at the same time. So I'm going to crimp them at the same time. Okay, so let's do the second here. I'm going to smash that extra solder down. Oops. There we go. And now drop it into the crimp. Get that bar down, line it up, slide it in, crimp. Good. And now the other side. And before I did this, of course, I tested the circuits to make sure that everything was working already. So I sprayed water, the pump worked, got everything flowing. I'm going to stick these two back. I barely have enough room. Good. Now I'm going to try this guy here. This is the Milwaukee Heat Gun. See if it generates enough heat to melt these things. It's supposed to reach its top speed in about, top temperature in about 8 seconds, I think. See anything happening? I see a little bit. I don't want to melt my reservoir. Maybe these tools are great for working when it's about 80 degrees out. So I'm going to speed that up with with the snap-on torch here. There we go, nice blue flame. Don't ever try this with non-shrink wrap crimps, or you'll just catch them on fire or melt them all over your... Come on, a little toasty there. Whoops, burned the wire, don't do that. That just set me back a little bit. There is a way you can actually crimp or shrink wrap midway through a wire by cutting the shrink wrap and then wrapping it and gluing it. Come on. Looks like I might have to finish some of this up with tape. It's getting pretty toasty. I don't know about this stuff. It's the first time I've tried this. I am not happy with it. I'm gonna cut my losses here and get some electrical tape. So what I've got to do before I can reattach this thing and fill it is make sure I seal up this thing. It's cold enough. I'm sure there's a proper way to do this. I'm always curious what the right way to do stuff is. That's why I like YouTube. These are still pretty dang toasty. Hope it doesn't melt my tape. But this poor old truck's 35 years old. Runs like a top, and I want to keep it that way without putting a bunch of money into it. There we go. Hopefully that fixed my mistake. Good enough. Now what I need to do is drop this back in, test it out. Let's line up the wires, stick the tubing. Whoops, did you not see any of that? I don't know. The tubing back in its channel here. And I'll, I don't want to pinch it off though. That'd just recreate my problem. It's pretty constrained. Anyway, grab my, I love these. It's the long-handled 1/4-inch snap-on. So I can just hook it on the battery out here. Make a quick adjustment of the camera a little bit so you can see that. So this this bolt here, need to take it off. So once you loosen it, if you've got one of these flex heads, it turns into a speeder. Slide that over. Always keep a magnetic dish handy, plus in the car you can just click it to anything. It's side of the car here. And now I'm going to drop this back down in. Hopefully it will fit. Line it up. I need to reconnect my hose here, and just like that. There's a guide hole. Got it. Alright. Now I need to, I'll put my battery battery piece back together because I have that socket already out. Switch it. You know, sometimes thinking of why do you need an extra long handle on a 1/4-inch ratchet? You know, it's a good way to bust stuff. Yeah, it is, but it's also a good way just to not have to put forth a huge amount of effort trying to do something, or even a small amount of effort. So line that up. Just line up that. So quickly cinch that up. Little snug, all done. So hopefully that's it. All lined up. Now the next step's to fill it and test it. And I trust it'll work. Check my temperature again since I've been out here. It's gone down. We're at 47. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this. Doc out.